Hello and welcome to episode 47 of the Peterpodcast. I'm your host, reporter Taylor Clydesdale, and with me this week is Andrew Beamer. Andrew is running for re-election in Northcrest Ward, and today we're going to be talking about the Parkway and either building it or alternatives.
But the traffic issue in the North End is real. It's becoming dangerous. The growth there is significant, and we can't continually talk about a north-southern link. So I do believe this next term at council, we need to either build the Parkway or remove the Parkway from the official plan and begin with an alternative.
And we're also going to be talking about jobs and economic development, so hope you enjoy the show.
Sure, Andrew. My name's Andrew Beamer. I was born and raised in Peterborough, attended PCVS, and then went off to Queen's University. Graduated from Queen's and came back to Peterborough to work and live.
Fellow PCVS graduate.
That's right, yes. Remember that big issue.
Were you on council when that was?
I was, yeah. Until this day, of all the issues we've dealt with, that is probably the issue I've received the most emails from.
Really?
No question. It was a big issue. I received emails from all over Canada, and you know what was challenging about that is it was out of our jurisdiction, so there was really nothing we could do. So yeah, to this day, it was probably one of the top issues in terms of emails.
That's crazy.
But,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your introduction.
PCVS, and I came back here to work. I bought a Petro-Canada franchise, which I owned and operated for 7 years. Currently, I work for a global food company. In 2010, I ran for election in Northcrest and was successfully elected, was successfully re-elected in 2014. I can tell you it's been an honor and a privilege to represent the residents for the past 8 years. And here I am again, Taylor, looking forward to an election in a few days, and we're campaigning hard, hoping to seek a re-election for another 4 years in Northcrest.
And as of the time of recording, it's you told me before, but I've already forgotten how many days until the election.
I think it's 9 sleeps.
Nine sleeps, or 9 sleepless nights if
That's
you're really
true.
anxious.
That's true. Yes,
But,
there'll be a few sleepless, but we're working hard. It's positive at the door, and it's always great to get out and talk to people on different issues. So so far it's so good, but it is a busy time for all candidates and those in the media.
So why did you decide to seek re-election for a third term?
I do really enjoy it. I love getting out and talking to people and meeting people, and I like being a part of a council and a community that's moving the community forward. So it's been a positive experience, and at the end of the day, I believe as a council over the years we've moved the community forward, and I want to be a part of continuing to move the community forward.
So in regards to that and the things that you've done to help move the community forward, what are some of the accomplishments that you feel particularly proud of over the past 8 years that you've been on council?
Sure, I think certainly from a job perspective, we're in a better position than we were 8 years. Just a few things I'd point out. One is the airport. In 2008, there were 422 direct jobs at the airport. Today, there's over 800. The GDP from the airport in 2008 was 43 million. Today it's 74 million. So certainly the airport's been a great success story in terms of jobs and economic development. Another one's Clean Tech Commons. That's just beginning, but I believe 20 years from now, the community will look back on that and say that was a great win for the community at the time. That's an 85-acre research innovation park where.
Which ward does Clean Tech Commons fall into? Is that going to be in Ashburnham?
It's Ashburnham.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's Ashburnham, but great for the community. So certainly, and of course other jobs, Mastermind Toys, Shoppers Drug Mart, Giant Tiger, Starbucks. So I think we've had some great wins with jobs and also development. The Lily Lake development, the Ashborough development, the Carnegie development, the Mason Homes development. So I think over the last 8 years, there's been a lot of growth and some wins in terms of jobs. And I think another issue that, in a few years we'll look back and say it was a positive was the additional revenue that's going to be coming in soon from the casino and the PDI sale. Now, both were controversial, I'm aware of that, but the facts are we have a lot of capital projects that need to be done. We need more money to complete them. The province I don't think is going to be handing out a lot of money in the next few years.
And they're just, in regards to that, I just want to
Yes.
note that this morning there was a withdrawal of promised money for the Twin Pad Arena at Trent. So that's $18 million less funding that they'll be receiving for that.
Exactly right. So, you take the casino money and the PDI money, you're going to be looking at approximately $10 million a year, every year coming into the city. And again, both controversial issues, but that will be money that will go to capital projects such as the Twin Pad, Bethune Street, Chemong Road widening, many other good capital projects, and just roads in general. So that's something will be beneficial for the community, additional revenue.
Yeah, and we're going to dive into PDI a little bit later. Got to save that for after the break to keep people hooked. But you talk about jobs, and I remember, being a young high school student at PCVS and hearing the oft-repeated claim that Peterborough has the lowest employment rate in Ontario or in Canada. And I don't even know if that was ever completely true, but now we have actually a really low unemployment rate. So that number has definitely, or that claim has definitely inverted. But I want to ask about the types of jobs that we have here in Peterborough as well, because while unemployment might be down, across Canada, part-time, occasional work is up as opposed to full-time work. So what type of jobs do we have in Peterborough now? What types of jobs should we be attracting to the community?
Sure. Well, no question we should be attracting full-time, well-paying jobs. That's the goal of every councillor and every politician and everyone in the community. And we've had successes. You look at the airport jobs, those are typically good-paying full-time jobs. You look at some of the companies that are going to be signing on to Clean Tech Commons. Again, good-paying full-time jobs. But to your point, very true. The industrial work of the past, I think, is difficult to attract now. So you do have to look at the airport, Clean Tech Commons. But even some of the businesses, you look at Starbucks. I believe that's 40 new jobs that'll be built on Chemong. Those are full-time jobs, relatively good paying. So that's beneficial. Giant Tiger, new jobs. Another positive is Venture North, where you're creating an entrepreneurial spirit among people, and small businesses really drive communities. And at the end of the day, and we've council's always said this, we can't directly create jobs. All we can do is create an environment that encourages economic development. So hopefully individuals come to Peterborough, or in Peterborough, create that entrepreneurial spirit because of the innovation cluster, Venture North, and start their own job, start their own business, and then can hire 3 or 4 others. So I do think if you look at some of the wins, we've created an environment that encourages economic development, and I think we do have some momentum when we talk about good paying full-time jobs.
And I want to go back to your point on industry, because right now we're looking at the closure of General Electric, which was at some point a huge job creator for our community, and that's going to be going away soon. And just in general, industrial jobs aren't really a thing in Peterborough. And when I see people talking about jobs on social media, and granted it's social media, so sometimes the conversation is a bit more sour than I'd like, but I do see a lot of people kind of finding it regrettable that we're not attracting industry to Peterborough. And is that the future that we're going to be having for Peterborough? Or should we be attracting big industry, or should we be attracting something a bit more like the airport, or something more like the Clean Tech Commons? Or is our future in small businesses like we're seeing at Venture North? Like what kind of jobs, what should we be focusing on industry as much as some people would like us to be?
I think our job as a council is to focus on everything, and I say that sincerely. Peterborough Economic Development have done a great job over the years. They go out and they go to trade shows, and they go out throughout Ontario and Canada and try to attract jobs. The challenge with the traditional industry is every community is looking for that. So you got to work with what your advantages are in your community, and for us it's definitely the airport. For us, it's now Clean Tech Commons. And I think, we have focused on the innovation cluster and venture north. So I think those are our niches right now where we've had some good success and we're getting some momentum. But listen, as you know, we're looking at developing some additional service land with some of our neighbors in the county. And that is for potential other types of industry. So I think when it's so competitive out there for jobs, you need to really be prepared to go in any direction, whether it's airport, whether it's business, whether it's clean tech commons and green innovation, or whether it's your quote unquote traditional industry. You have to be prepared to have those discussions with any organization or company.
Yeah, and I know there was that plan to, there was the annexation plans with Gavin Monoghan, which the original conversation was, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, $2.5 million for 25 years.
Correct. Yeah.
The city sought to change some of those numbers to scale those payments with the tax revenue that we'd be making off the land, and that's kind of where the conversation ended. So I think land is really the next question if in regards to attracting commercial, industrial businesses to Peterborough, and we don't have a lot of land anymore.
No, we don't. We have the 85 acres at Clean Tech Commons, which is sort of focused on, like I said, the green innovation. But you're completely right. An annexation will be a big piece, I think, early on in the next term. I am hopeful a deal will still occur. I really am. I think it was a good deal. The concern was, as you said, it was a $74.4 million deal for 4,000 acres, half of which were essentially swamp. And we wanted the payments spread out depending on development. So if there was no development for several years, we wouldn't be paying. If there was development, then we'd pay. So I am confident that a deal will be struck in the next year or so, which will be beneficial for everybody. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure it's beneficial for the taxpayers of Peterborough, and they're not burdened with a significant amount of expense.
Are you confident that a deal will be made in the next year because of conversation with Gavin Monoghan or with the change in provincial government?
I think a little bit of both. I think this government understands the importance of development and growth in this area. And I think after the election, municipal election, we'll get back to sitting down with Gavin Monoghan. We know a deal needs to be made. It's in the best interest of everyone. And I think everyone will come to the table and put a deal together. Might be a little smaller, might be less residential, Taylor, and the same amount of service land, but I think a deal's there.
Okay. I didn't mean to grill you so much on jobs in the first
not
half,
at all.
but I'm glad
Great.
to have had that discussion.
Listen, job creation is one of the top topics at the door. It's something I hear over and over, and on my brochure, it's the number one thing: job creation, economic development. It's it's what people want to talk about at the door. And so it's a good conversation to have.
Yeah. So what conversations are you having at the door? What are some of the main issues that people are bringing to you when you're knocking on doors and having these conversations with people?
Yeah, great conversations. Probably the big 3 or 4 is not surprising in the North End. Traffic. Northcrest is the fastest growing area in the city of Peterborough. 5 developments right now. So traffic is the number 1 issue. Job creation is probably number 2. And roads is probably number 3, and taxes, of course, property taxes. So those are probably the big 4 we're hearing at the door. And I certainly understand the importance of all of them. Like I said, I think we've had some success with some jobs, but certainly roads and infrastructure is one I'm hearing more and more this time than I did 4 years from now. And it's something council will have to focus on is repairing our existing infrastructure and roads.
Yeah, and I noticed that, maybe it's just me, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but a lot of the growth and development happening in Peterborough is definitely kind of in the more northern sections. I mean, you have Ashborough Village happening near the lift locks. You have Lily Lake Road happening down by Monaghan Ward. Yeah. And so, what are some of the type of things that we can expect over the next 4 years that to be changing in Northcrest Ward?
You're right. Lily Lake Development's technically in Monaghan, but it is directly the north end of the city of Peterborough. Then you have the Shamong Chemung area, which is the north end, and 3 others. So Northcrest is expected to double in the next 10 years, and you're seeing that growth already. So listen, traffic and transportation is the big issue up there. You look at streets like Cumberland, Franklin, Highland, Wolseley, they're just getting hammered with cut-through traffic, and that's just going to double over the years with this type of growth. Another thing I think the North End really has to look at, in the city in general, is getting more restaurants and commercial area up in the North End. A lot of the restaurants are on Lansdowne, as you know. So people in the North End, when they want to go out to dinner, it's typically down to Lansdowne. We do have a few restaurants on Chemung, but I think we need more. So there's only so much City Council can do, as you know, but I think that's something we need to work on, is more commercial growth on the Chemung corridor, given the type of growth we're seeing in Northcrest Ward.
I have to admit, I'm a little bit sour about one thing, and
yes.
that's that you stole my Apollo Grill.
Sorry, but we needed it.
I love going to that
to the
downtown.
North End.
Oh, I love that downtown Apollo Grill.
Yeah.
I used to live out by the one on Lansdowne. So then when I moved downtown,
yes.
I was like, oh, I get my downtown Apollo Grill, and now it's gone.
Now you got the North End Apollo Grill. Well, listen, come on anytime. We're friendly people up in the north, and it's a great restaurant.
I have to drive all the way up to North End.
Yeah, all the way up to the
all
North
the way
End.
up to North End of Peterborough.
Terrible. All the way up.
Well, we'll talk about driving up to the North End of Peterborough and transportation.
Whatever do you mean?
The Parkway.
The what?
The Parkway.
Okay.
We'll talk a bit about that, but we're going to take a short break,
yeah.
and we'll get back into it.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right, perfect. We'll be right back. So we're back on the Peter Podcast, and we were just transitioning before the break to talk about transportation. That's a fun conversation, isn't it?
I think I know where this is going.
Yeah, so let's talk about transportation, and let's particularly talk about the Parkway. Because I find that when it comes to the Parkway, specifically the North End, the conversation about the North End Parkway kind of gets lost, because even people who are anti-Parkway are kind of, a lot of them are still for that medical drive connection to the existing Parkway. And then people keep talking about that bridge over Jackson's Park. But not a lot of people spend as much time talking about the North End connection. So let's talk a bit about that, and what do you think of the possibility of building that North End section of the Parkway?
I've always supported the Parkway, and the North End portion, as you know, is from Fairburn all the way to Cumberland. So that's the North End. And it's a good point. Most people now support medical drive. They think it's great. Most people support the southern portion. Most people oppose the bridge, and then no one talks about the northern portion. But I've always supported the Parkway. I think it is needed, particularly with the incredible growth in the North End. As I've said before, it's doubling in the next 10 years, and you already see the subdivisions building out. But I do believe that it's incumbent that this next term of council implement a north-south traffic link once and for all. If it's the Parkway, great. If it's an alternative, that's fine. But the traffic issue in the North End is real. It's becoming dangerous. The growth there is significant, and we can't continually talk about a north-southern link. So I do believe this next term of council, we need to either build the Parkway or remove the Parkway from the official plan and begin with an alternative north-south link. It's just something we can't continue to talk about any longer. So you don't sound married to the Parkway at all. As long as there's a traffic solution, it could be the Parkway, it could not be the Parkway. Something just needs to be done. Something needs to be done. And I support the Parkway, but I'm, you can't just keep supporting it and nothing ever happening. So I do support it, but if it's not going to happen, let's move on with another alternative for a north-south link. Now, we have been told in reports and by staff that the alternative would most likely cost more, because most likely it would be widening streets, buying homes, moving utilities. So there will be a significant cost to any alternative. But we really do need a north-south link with the incredible growth in the North End. So I think this term of council the council has to make a decision and implement the link.
And I think that's something that's lost on some people, certainly not all, is that no matter what happens, it's going to be expensive. The solution for dealing with traffic in Peterborough is not a cheap problem to solve. Whether we're widening streets or implementing this ring road that some people are proposing or building the Parkway, it's going to cost money, and that money has to come from somewhere.
Exactly. You know, whether it's the Parkway, a ring road, widening existing streets, it's going to be very costly and it's going to be controversial. You know, I've always said before, whatever the alternative to the Parkway will be, it'll be controversial. It'll be expensive and there'll be people who oppose it. So that's why I think we do need to implement a north-south link and make the tough decision and move on. It's interesting, about 6 years ago in my first term at council, one of the comments we heard from people who opposed the Parkway or opposed a north-south link was, there's going to be no growth in the North End. All of this development is on paper. Lily Lake is on paper. Carnegie's on paper. Heatherton is on paper. It's not on paper anymore. It's happening. It's been improved. Shovels in the ground. The development in the North End is happening as we speak. And you're going to see significant growth in the next 10 years. It's already started with the development. And we need to be ready for it with a transportation study.
So a lot of people have talked about the 6-5 vote on council.
Yeah,
that council often ends in these 6-5 votes, where you know you've often been said to be on the 6 side, and the Parkway is part of that. There's a possibility that in the next term of council, maybe votes don't end in 6-5 as often, or the 6-5 changes to a different number. But let's say that you're on a council that doesn't have a majority support for building the Parkway. Do you then continue to advocate for the Parkway, or do you change tracks to go to other solutions?
Listen, if the majority of council doesn't support the Parkway next term, I would voice my opinion that I support the Parkway, and then I'd say, let's get on with another alternative. And I'd get on the bus, so to speak, and find a solution for the North End. So if the majority of council says we're looking at another option, I would say, great, I'm on board, let's find this other option. And just to the 6-5 votes,
I was gonna clarify it and double down and ask you about that.
They're really, you got to keep in mind, we take, I don't know, Taylor, 400 votes a year. There hasn't been that many. The Parkway wasn't 6-5; it was 7-4.
Okay.
And previously to that, it was 8-3. The casino was 8-3. There have been maybe, I don't know, 6-5 votes. So, you know, the PDI was 6-5 and everyone looks at that, but you look, 98% of votes are unanimous, 11-0.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do forget about the number of items that are passed on consent too.
And quite frankly, there's been a lot of 8-3 votes, especially around development. So, 6-5. They're really, when you take 400 votes a year, it's.
You don't think there's much merit to the 6-5 accusation?
I really don't. I think, and I personally think 6-5 is not a bad thing. I think when you deal with divisive or complicated issues, having divergent views or different ideas is a good thing. I think if every vote was 11-0, we'd be criticized for that. So I think 6-5, 7-4, it's good to have different voices, and I think that's democracy.
Yeah. And let's talk about a divisive issue.
Yeah.
Let's talk about PDI.
PDI, yes.
And you were one of the councillors who voted in favor of selling PDI.
Yeah.
Maybe you can explain to people why you decided to make that choice.
Sure. It was a tough decision. We went through a process called PDI Talk, where we had quite a few meetings in the community. We had one in the North End, a lot of consultation. At the end of the day, you have to balance between the concerns in the community and also what the professionals and the experts were telling us. And the experts made it very clear that PDI as a standalone company wouldn't function much longer. There was no growth potential. We're surrounded by Hydro One. The new Lily Lake is Hydro One. Simon's Subdivision and Raymond Street Extension are Hydro One. So there was very little growth. Also with the changes in the province and the recommendation to go from 100 distribution companies down to 6 and streamline it. That was something we were hearing from the province. So you had to weigh all the issues and the concerns and make a decision what you felt was in the best interest of the community going forward, and that's what I did. The residents who were concerned about it, some of the comments they made is, well, we're concerned about distribution rates going up. Well, the contract and the deal dealt with that. There's going to be a 1% reduction and then held for 5 years, and then inflation for another 5 years. So that was addressed. There was concerns about job losses. Well, PDI employees will keep their jobs, and in fact, there's going to be 30 new jobs. There was concern about what to do with the money. We're getting the $105 million, and we'll be able to reinvest the $60 million and get a greater dividend, approximately $3 to $4 million a year, compared to the $700,000 to $900,000 we were getting. So I know there was a lot in the community who were concerned or opposed, but a lot of their concerns, one way or another, were addressed with the final deal. And what I'm hearing at the door is people saying I had issues and concerns, but a lot of them have been addressed. Rates won't increase. There is job security. There's a new hub with jobs here. And like I said before, with the casino revenue and the PDI revenue, $10 million a year coming into the city coffer for capital project. That's a good thing. And some of my colleagues who oppose the casino and oppose PDI are already talking about how to spend the money. So that additional revenue will be a benefit for the community long term.
Now, the city, correct me if my math is wrong on this, but $105 million is the total amount that PDI is selling for, but the city is only receiving about $55 million. Is that accurate?
It'll be around the $55 million, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I got those numbers correct.
Yeah. And if I misspoke there, I apologize. We sold it for 105. We'll receive 55 after we pay off our debts, and then we'll reinvest that 55.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to spend the 55. We'll reinvest the 55 and then live off the yield, which will be about $3 to $4 million a year.
Okay. And the other night, you and I were at Election Fest.
Yeah.
Great opportunity to speak with constituents and get a sense for how they're feeling. And one of the people that was there was our local community activist, Roy Brady.
Yes.
And he went around and he had a survey asking people whether or not that if they were on council in the next term, whether they would consider selling the city's water division of Peterborough Utilities. And I'm curious what your answer was to that question.
My answer was, what was my answer? Was a no, it was a yes. It was I need more information.
Okay.
I'm not, Roy Brady's Roy Brady. He's always around with his clipboard, and on any issue, I always get all the information before I make a decision. So if that came forward, we'd look at the information and make a decision. I think it's unlikely. Mm-hmm. Most likely, I'd be no, but at least let's look at all the information and the reasons.
Yeah, and I just bring that up because I think there is a section of the community who was against the sale, who is fearful that the sale of PDI might be a slippery slope to us selling other parts of our utility.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's highly unlikely, but we'll see what the future holds. But I'm not hearing anything. The province hasn't indicated anything. And, again, PDI was unique, and you had a standalone business that was not going to be viable in 10 years. You've seen that over the years. It was making us $1.3 million, then it dropped to $700,000. So you had a business that John Stevenson made very clear this is not viable.
Okay. Now let's, if we're okay with moving on to the next topic.
Course, absolutely.
Let's talk about housing. Because as we mentioned before, there's a lot of housing development happening in Peterborough's north end. What's the future of housing in Peterborough? Because right now we are facing a housing crisis. We have a 1% vacancy rate for rentals. How do we deal with that?
I think we deal on a number of different fronts. Number one is approving development. There's very low inventory right now. Individuals want to buy houses in Peterborough and can't, and that's the reason that the house prices are increasing significantly. So number one, we have to approve development. That's why I supported the Lily Lake development in Ashborough and all other developments, and those developments have a different range of types of housing. So I think that's number one. Number two, we have to focus on intensification in the downtown. We have intensification targets, as you know, handed out by the province, and we've been doing that as a council. I think one big mistake we made was not approving the pig's ear, but regardless, we've done a good job in intensification. I think thirdly is approving and following through with the secondary suites policy that allows people to rent their basements out safely and legally, and I think that will help. We don't know how many people will proceed with renting out their basement, but even if it's 1,000, 2,000, that's 1,000 or 2,000 extra rooms or apartments that people can rent out. I think fourth and fifth, Taylor's Peterborough Housing Corporation have done a great job. I'm on their board. They're the city's largest social housing provider. And as you know, they are creating 2 complexes at the former Fleming College on Bonacard Street. One for a program called Homegrown Homes, which is female-led families, 38 units. And the second one is 81 units for seniors with who need care. So that'll be an advantage. And then also the Brock is coming on board with 15 transitional houses and 30 emergency shelters. So I think the city's doing a lot of good things, whether it's brand new development, intensification, secondary suites, or more affordable housing, such as the Brock or Peterborough Housing Corporation. We're doing as much as we can, and we'll continue to focus on housing.
Yeah, and I know there's I think you did a good job of pointing out that it's a lot more than just building single semi-detached homes.
It is, yeah.
For single families. It's a lot of intensification of core areas. I know the city has identified its nodes and corridors for growth, and that includes areas that need to be built up, like Shamong, Armour Road, the downtown, those types of places. And as much as a lot of those elements have their own levels of criticism, I think the number one criticism that I hear about new housing development has to do with the approval of subdivisions and the idea that we shouldn't just be building rows of houses, that we should be building neighborhoods. And when I talked to Dave McGowan, who's running in Monaghan Ward. Okay, I remember that, yes. I didn't know if he was running against you or not, and I didn't want to bring up a counterpoint from one of your opponents. But something that he had brought up with me in our Peterpodcast interview was building of complete communities, things like East City, where you have these little commercial hubs and parks and arenas and making things into more communities than just rows of houses. Yes. How do we go about making subdivisions that are more than just subdivisions?
Absolutely, more than the 1950 subdivisions where it was just single housing. And I think we've done a good job. A good example is the Mason Homes development up in the North End. It was a 780 unit build. I think we're over halfway there. It's off of Shamong and Milroy, and it was called at the time New Urbanism. And it has different types of housing. It's got the single units, but it's also got other intensification and types of housing. It's got several different parkettes. It has trails and cycling trails, and then it in a commercial area, which hasn't been built yet, but there will be a commercial area just off Shamong where people can walk to that area. Same with the new Hetherington development. We just approved different types of housing with a commercial area and a park. So I think that's something we have been focusing on. The Lily Lake development, same thing. May have a school there. We'll have commercial there. And again, parkettes and cycling and bike lanes. So I think that's something we have been doing is focusing more on the complete neighborhoods and the complete streets. And you look at the developments we've approved in the past 4 years and you compare them to the 1950 developments, I think we are building complete neighborhoods.
Yeah, and I know sustainability and environmentalism is being brought up more and more just about every single day. It's entering common conversation, and getting people out of cars and making sure that they're able to walk to where they want to go to neighborhoods. One of the reasons why I like living in the downtown is because I can get out of my apartment and kind of walk to any amenities that I need to. So maybe you can speak to the fact that we need a design that makes for walkable communities and making sure that we have that.
Absolutely. And, once you do that, then that alleviates traffic off of residential streets, which is the number one issue in Northcrest. So instead of someone getting out of their house, getting in their car and driving and cutting through 3 or 4 or 5 residential streets to get to the bank or get to the butcher's or get to the convenience store, they can get out of their house and walk to those things. And that's why the Little Lake development, the Hetherington development, the Shimon development are so important to have those little commercial nodes in them. Now they won't have a Walmart or a Fresco. Those are areas where you'll still most likely have to drive or take transit. But if you can have in every new development a commercial area where to do your banking, to buy milk or bread or those convenient things you need every few days, it makes a big difference. So we have been focusing on that, and we'll continue to focus on that.
All right, Andrew, we're just about to run out of time, but maybe you want to speak a little bit about, I'll leave it with you. Anything else that you want to add before we sign off? Any messages that you want to get out there?
No, I just, we're in a re-election right now, and as I've said before, it's been an honor and a privilege to represent Northcrest over the past 8 years. I've enjoyed it very much. Over the past 4 years, Dave Hakey, who's my ward mate, we've had barbecues, we've had town hall meetings. Once a month we go out and knock on doors just to listen to concerns for the residents. So it's been a great experience, Taylor, and I just hope I have the privilege to represent the residents of Northcrest for another 4 years. It has been an honor, and I've enjoyed every second of it.
All right, Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Listen, my pleasure. Great to be here. Thank you.
And to everybody else, we will see you again soon.